The Missing Piece, Action, by David Russo. The missing piece isn't knowledge. It's action, and it starts here. Introduction. The missing piece. This book lives in that fragile, decisive gap between awareness and execution. Learning is valuable. Planning is valuable. Capability is valuable. But none of them generate forward motion on their own. Progress begins the moment action shows up, before everything feels safe, before answers are complete, while doubt is still in the room. What you're about to read isn't driven by polished mantras or abstract frameworks. It's grounded in lived reality, in patterns observed over time, and in lessons shaped by resistance rather than imagination. It reflects how change truly happens, not the version we like to idealize. By the final page, one truth should stand firm: action is not optional. It's not an accessory or an afterthought. It's the essential ingredient, the element that converts thought into result, desire into direction, and pause into momentum. If you're finished postponing, ready to participate, and willing to move toward what you already know is within reach, this is where it begins. The step you've been avoiding hasn't gone anywhere. It's been waiting on you. Chapter 1. Should I even write this? I wrestled with whether this book should exist at all, not because my mind was empty. I had more thoughts than I knew what to do with. It was something quieter and more dangerous, that internal murmur that surfaces whenever you're about to do something that actually matters. The doubts lined up neatly. Do I have anything worth sharing? Am I qualified to create a nonfiction audiobook? Will this land with anyone or disappear unnoticed? They sounded like reasonable concerns, but they weren't. They were delay wearing a convincing mask. The same delay that traps people in preparation mode, endlessly refining, endlessly postponing, endlessly promising themselves they'll start later. For a time, I almost listened. I told myself I needed to wait, to sharpen the idea, to feel more certain, to gather evidence that this was worthwhile. I thought clarity had to come first, that confidence would eventually arrive, invite me forward. But the longer I stalled, the clearer something became. Waiting contradicts everything this book stands for. This book exists because I chose to act, not because I felt ready but because I didn't. We often pretend that movement follows certainty, that we'll take steps once fear is gone, once the plan is flawless, once confidence locks into place. In reality, that moment almost never shows up. Clarity comes from doing, confidence grows through motion. Ideas only become real when they're acted on. I know this because I've lived it, especially when overthinking was no longer an option. I've also seen what happens when nothing is done. Chances fade. Time slips by. Regret settles in, asking why something so small was postponed until it was too late. This book is not pretending action is comfortable. It's honest. I've seen the contrast between moving forward and staying still. There was a period in my life when hesitation wasn't harmless. It would have cost me dearly. That experience changed how I see everything. It taught me that skill, preparation, and good intentions are meaningless without follow-through. You can map things out endlessly, you can wish as long as you want, you can wait for ideal circumstances, but nothing shifts until someone decides to move. That realization didn't stay confined to one event. I saw it echoed in conversations, in missed chances, in dreams people spoke about but never pursued. I started to notice how common waiting is, waiting to feel capable, waiting for approval, waiting for the right time, and eventually, a truth surfaced, one most of us avoid. Staying still feels safe, but it's expensive. It drains time, it kills momentum, it erases versions of yourself before they ever exist. Writing this book may seem small, but it wasn't insignificant. Because if I couldn't act on something I genuinely believed in, the words themselves would be hollow. So I chose motion, not perfection, not certainty, not complete understanding, just movement. This audiobook exists because of that decision. It's evidence that you don't need guarantees to begin, only a willingness to take the next step. And if you're listening right now, you've already taken one. That counts. The question isn't whether you're capable, it's whether you'll act. That's where everything truly begins. Chapter 2. The night action became real. Based on a true event, there are times when thought disappears and reflex takes control. Times when hesitation costs too much, when waiting for permission or help isn't an option. In those moments, you act or you accept whatever follows. Mine arrived in a dorm room, an argument ignited without warning. There was no order, no authority, no clear boundary to keep it from spiraling. Just raw emotion between two people who had already crossed the line of restraint. One of them had a clear physical advantage of football player. The other didn't. They closed the distance quickly, tension thick in the air. Then the bigger guy lunged. It was sudden, forceful, and it didn't end with a single motion. Everything stopped. That pause is familiar. When things turn ugly, most people freeze. They expect someone else to intervene. They convince themselves it will resolve on its own. I'm not someone who seeks confrontation. I don't enjoy force or chaos. For a heartbeat, I stood there too, fully aware that the situation was deteriorating and that choosing not to move was still a choice. Then instinct kicked in. Years of martial arts training hadn't been about domination or aggression. It was about control, awareness, and responsibility, and things went wrong. And in that instant, that training only mattered if I trusted it, so I stepped forward. In a single motion, I positioned myself between them, hands on the football player's shoulders, grounded and stable. I didn't shove or strike. I matched his movement, stayed centered, and managed space instead of power. It wasn't violent, it was intentional. By controlling my position, I restricted his options. By staying with him, I bought time just enough for the other guy to escape. He did. Someone on the sidelines tried to fuel the chaos, egging it on. I turned to them and said, evenly and without raising my voice, "Not in this dorm." That ended it. The atmosphere shifted. People snapped out of it. The surge of adrenaline faded, and the moment dissolved as quickly as it had formed. Later, the weight of it hit me, not what happened, but how close it came to becoming something far worse. Without intervention, it could have escalated beyond repair. The consequences might have lasted a lifetime. That night never left me, not because I stopped to fight, but because I understood what inaction might have allowed. I didn't step in for praise. I stepped in because standing by didn't sit right. Because, in that moment, responsibility didn't belong to someone else. That experience reshaped how I think about action. Action doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to draw attention. But it always begins with a decision. Training without application changes nothing. Intentions don't interrupt momentum. Ability is useless if it stays unused. What that night taught me is simple and permanent. Action is what separates observing a moment from altering it. Once you see that, you start noticing it everywhere. In the chances people avoid. In the ideas that never leave conversation. In the quiet moments where a choice could have been made. Sometimes action builds something meaningful. Other times, it simply stops disaster before it starts. Either way, it counts. Chapter 3. Preparation without action is useless. We all like to think that preparation is enough. We study. We plan. We rehearse. We train. We collect knowledge, tools, and strategies. We imagine the perfect scenario, the perfect execution, the perfect timing. But here's the hard truth. Preparation without action is useless. It doesn't matter how much you know if you never move. Knowledge alone doesn't create change. Skill alone doesn't produce results. Planning alone doesn't make dreams come true. Think about it this way. The best martial artist in the world, the one who has trained for decades, cannot stop a crisis unless they step forward. The best chef in the world cannot create a meal unless they pick up a knife. The fastest car in the world will never cross the finish line until someone pushes the pedal. Everything in life works this way. I've seen this repeatedly, not just in dramatic moments, like the night I stepped into that fight, but in everyday life. People spend years preparing for opportunities, imagining their success, but never stepping toward it. They dream about what could be, but never act on what is, and there's a cost to that. Time slips away. Confidence fades. Opportunities vanish. People wonder why their life feels stuck when the answer is simpler than they think. They prepared, but they didn't move. Action is the bridge between potential and reality. It is the piece that turns ideas into outcomes, planning into results, dreams into achievements. Without it, preparation is just waiting. That doesn't mean action should be reckless. Thoughtless, careless action often makes things worse. Action must be guided by awareness, skill, and intent. But the key is that it must happen. I've also learned that action creates clarity. When you act, you discover things you couldn't see while planning. You find obstacles, solutions, and possibilities that remain invisible from the sidelines. You learn, adapt, and grow. Waiting, on the other hand, only creates uncertainty, doubt, and regret. In my own life, the times I hesitated the longest are the times I lost the most. The opportunities I didn't pursue, the words I didn't speak, the chances I didn't take, all of them were wasted moments, simply because I hadn't acted. It's easy to think that success requires perfection first, that you need all the knowledge, all the skill, all the confidence, all the pieces in place before stepping forward. But the truth is the opposite. Action comes first. Perfection, skill, and knowledge improve through doing, not by waiting. So what does this mean for you? It means that if you have an idea, a goal, a dream, or a responsibility, the most important thing you can do is start. Move. Act. Even imperfectly. Even hesitantly. Even when you're unsure, because the world responds to motion. It rewards effort, courage, and initiative. It transforms intention into impact. Preparation matters, only when paired with action. Everything else is just planning, and planning alone never changes a life. Chapter 4. Why movies never get made without it. Think about a movie you love, one that stayed with you, stirred something inside, lingered in your thoughts long after it ended. Now picture that same movie without movement. The script exists. Writers poured their time and heart into it. Actors memorized every line. Directors mapped out each shot. Producers secured funding. Sets were built. Lights were positioned. Cameras stood ready, but the word action was never spoken. The actors remain frozen. The cameras stay off. The story never leaves the page. Every ounce of preparation, creativity, and effort amounts to nothing. In film, action is a command. In life, it's a requirement. You can plan endlessly. You can learn, research, and prepare until you feel ready. But without movement, nothing changes. Progress doesn't begin until you do. I'm reminded of this whenever someone says, "I'll start soon," or "I just need a little more time." The truth is, that perfect moment almost never arrives. Waiting for clarity or confidence is like standing on a film set forever, hoping the movie will somehow make itself. The vision exists, but it never reaches the world. Action is the transfer point. It's where ideas turn into reality. It's the force that converts intention into impact. Without it, everything stays theoretical. You see this play out everywhere. People who talk non-stop about what they want, yet never take a step toward it. People who keep learning but never applying. People who dream of change but never act on it. They have outlines. They have plans. They have potential. But they remain stuck in pre-production. What separates those who move forward from those who don't is surprisingly simple. The ones who succeed take action consistently. They start before they feel ready. They stumble. They adapt. And they keep going. That's the point. Action doesn't need to be flawless. It doesn't need to be impressive. It just needs to exist. Small steps count. Sending the message. Publishing the post. Making the call. Submitting the application. Each one is a signal that your story is finally in motion. So ask yourself, are you endlessly preparing, or are you actually moving? Because no film ever reaches the screen without action. And no life ever changes through thought alone. Action isn't optional, it's the catalyst. It always has been, and it always will be. Chapter 5. The weight you never lose. Almost everyone knows this struggle, maybe it's even your own. The constant thoughts about getting healthier, dropping pounds, feeling stronger. The endless scrolling through advice, the saved workout videos, the carefully imagined future where everything finally looks and feels right, and yet, nothing changes. I've watched people sit in this phase for years. They mentally count calories, but never write them down. They study training programs, but never walk through the gym doors. They picture success in detail, while staying frozen in the same place. Preparation without movement leads nowhere. Information alone has no power. Good intentions don't produce results. That gym membership doesn't work unless you do. A flawless nutrition plan won't help if it stays on your phone. The perfect routine means nothing if it never leaves your head. Results only come from action. Messy action. Imperfect action. Consistent action. This is why resolutions collapse so quickly. People make plans and promises. They talk about the change they're going to make. Then the days slip by. Motivation drops. Life interrupts. Excuses grow louder. And the goal quietly fades into the background. This pattern isn't limited to fitness. Health just makes it easier to see. Fat loss, strength, stamina, none of it comes from thinking harder. It comes from showing up repeatedly. Planning helps with direction, but execution is what actually moves you forward. You don't need ideal conditions. You don't need a flawless schedule or the best equipment. You need to begin right where you are, with what you have. Today, tiny actions matter more than you think. A short walk, one better food choice, a single workout completed, tracking progress instead of avoiding it. These small wins stack up. They build trust with yourself. They turn effort into habit. Doing nothing, on the other hand, always extracts a heavier price. It steals time. It drains confidence. It keeps you stuck as someone you've already outgrown. Here's the reality: results demand effort. And lasting results demand repeated effort. Planning and learning can support the process, but they will never replace it. This principle applies everywhere: your body, your career, your relationships, your creative work. You can understand everything and map it all out, but without action, you stay exactly the same. So stop waiting for inspiration. Stop waiting for ideal timing. Stop waiting until you feel ready. Begin. Take one step, then another. Let movement create momentum, because change isn't born from thought, it's born from action, and action is what most people avoid carrying, even though it's the only weight that ever truly lifts. Chapter 6. The wrong actions still count. We often think that action has to be perfect to matter. We assume that if we don't do the right thing, if we make a mistake, if we stumble, it's as if nothing happened at all. That's not true. Action, in any form, teaches you something. Action exposes problems, reveals opportunities, and gives you clarity that planning alone never will. Even when you take the wrong step, you're closer than you were sitting still. Think about learning a new skill. You try, you fail, you adjust. Each attempt moves you forward, even if it feels like a misstep. Each wrong action builds experience. Each mistake brings insight. Inaction, by contrast, keeps you frozen in uncertainty forever. It's the same with life's bigger decisions. The person who applies for a job and doesn't get it still learn it how the process works. The entrepreneur who launches a product that fails still learns about their audience, the market, and themselves. The artist who posts a video that doesn't go viral still practiced, shared, and connected with someone. Even the wrong action carries value. It teaches. It shapes. It moves you toward clarity. The problem is that too many people are afraid of making mistakes. They wait for the perfect timing, the perfect plan, the perfect conditions. They think every move must be flawless. And while they wait, opportunities pass them by. Time slips away. Their ideas, their dreams, their potential, quietly fade. But here's the truth: waiting for perfection is the opposite of action. Doing something imperfectly is still a step forward. I've seen it in people who start small. Someone who wants to write a book begins by scribbling notes on napkins. Someone who wants to get fit starts with a single workout. Someone who wants to connect with someone new sends a message, even if it feels awkward. They might stumble. They might fail. But they acted. And action compounds. Contrast that with the person who spends months preparing. They read the books, watch the videos, and outline plans. They imagine results in vivid detail. And then, nothing. No steps are taken. No lessons are learned. No progress is made. They have knowledge but nothing else. The takeaway is simple: action is never wasted, even if it's imperfect. Inaction, on the other hand, guarantees failure. So stop waiting for the right action. Stop waiting for conditions that may never come. Stop assuming that if you fail, it won't count, because it does. Every move, every step, every attempt, right or wrong, is forward motion. Each one teaches you, strengthens you, and puts you closer to the life you want. Action is the missing piece. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to happen. Chapter 7. Perfection is a trap. Perfection is a subtle prison. It often shows up disguised as high standards, careful planning, or a desire to do things right. It convinces us that we need more time, more knowledge, more confidence, something more, before we begin. It tells us to hold back until every detail is flawless and every variable controlled. But life doesn't slow down to accommodate hesitation. While we wait, chances slip away. Time passes. Possibilities that once felt alive grow distant, never tested, never explored. I've seen this pattern repeat again and again. People pour years into refining ideas, polishing strategies, and preparing for an ideal debut. They wait for the perfect conditions, the right tools, the optimal timing. Too often, their plans never leave the drawing board. What could have existed in the real world stays locked in their imagination. The uncomfortable reality is this: progress doesn't come from perfection. It comes from participation. Growth is created through action, not endless preparation. Doing something doesn't demand excellence. It doesn't require certainty or approval. It simply requires a first step. Those who build, create, and achieve don't wait for everything to be aligned. They begin before they feel ready. They make mistakes. They course correct. They learn by moving forward, not by standing still. The perfectionist, on the other hand, remains stuck, forever adjusting, forever preparing, forever just short of starting. In chasing an ideal outcome, they miss the truth that nothing improves without motion. At its core, perfectionism is fear wearing a respectable mask. Fear of failing. Fear of criticism. Fear of falling short. And the most effective way to weaken fear is not overthinking its action. Momentum, movement, imperfect steps still count. That first message sent. That initial attempt shared. That call made, page written, workout started. None of it has to be finished or flawless. Each step teaches something. Each effort builds energy. Perfection keeps potential dormant. Action brings it to life. It converts preparation into progress and ideas into experience. So when you find yourself waiting for the ideal timing, the perfect strategy, or a better version of yourself, pause the waiting. Start anyway. Take a single step today, even if it feels rough around the edges, because the world responds to those who move, not those who wait. Action is what turns intention into results. Chapter 8. The Girl You Never Approach. We all know the type of person who dreams about a life they want but never moves toward it. They think about asking someone out. They imagine meeting their dream client. They rehearse conversations in their head. They plan, strategize, and perfect their approach. And then, nothing happens. The man who never approaches the woman he's interested in will never know she would have said yes. The person who never pursues their dream job will never see if it could have been theirs. The aspiring creator who never posts content will never know if it could have resonated. The opportunity exists only in the space where action meets intention. Without it, potential remains just that, potential. I've seen this countless times. People freeze, waiting for the right moment, for the perfect words, for the ideal conditions. They convince themselves that they'll act tomorrow, next week, next year. And while they wait, the moment passes. Life moves on. And the chance is gone forever. Action is simple, but it's not easy. It's vulnerable. It exposes you to rejection, to mistakes, to embarrassment. But here's the secret: rejection isn't failure. Not acting, that's failure. Not trying, that's what guarantees nothing changes. You don't need a perfect plan to move forward. You don't need complete certainty. You don't need the world to align perfectly. You just need to step. You just need to try. You just need to make the first move. Even small action matters. Saying hello is action. Sending a message is action. Introducing yourself is action. Posting your first video, making the first call, applying for the first opportunity, these are all steps that move you forward, even if they don't produce instant success. I've also learned that action builds courage. The first step is the hardest, but once you take it, the next step becomes easier. Each attempt strengthens your confidence. Each failure teaches a lesson. Each success, no matter how small, proves that movement is better than hesitation. The person who never acts is left wondering what if. The person who acts, imperfectly, hesitantly, fearfully, learns, grows, and changes their reality. The girl you never approach, the dream you never chase, the opportunity you never pursue, these things only become real when you act. Waiting is the enemy. Fear is the trap. Perfection is an illusion. Action is the only bridge between where you are and where you want to be. If you want to change your life, to know what's possible, to stop wondering what could have been, you have to move. You have to act, because the only no that truly matters is the one that comes from not trying. Action is the missing piece. Chapter 9. Build, share, repeat. We live in an era where creating and connecting has never been easier. Platforms, tools, and communities are everywhere: social media, blogs, videos, forums, and beyond. The doors are wide open. Yet most people never walk through them. They think, plan, and imagine endlessly, but they rarely take the first step. I've watched this pattern repeat over and over. Someone wants to start a channel, tell their story, post content, or bring people together, but it stays an idea. They research non-stop, refine outlines, rehearse in their head, and chase the perfect version of their work, until it never leaves the drawing board. The reasons are familiar: fear of judgment, mental overload, perfectionism, and the belief that someday conditions will be just right. But creation doesn't work that way. Progress always begins with action, not polish. You can't improve something that hasn't been shared. You can't discover what resonates if nothing is released. You can't make an impact by staying silent. Movement creates clarity. That first post, that first video, that first attempt, no matter how rough, sets everything in motion. It reveals what connects and what doesn't. It shows you where to grow. Over time, you find your rhythm. You shape your voice. You begin to build something real. Even missteps matter. The content that flops, the message that misses, the project that gains no traction, all that teaches you something. Each attempt sharpens your understanding. Each failure is feedback. Each step forward counts. Consistency turns effort into momentum. One action leads to another. Small outputs stack up. A single post becomes a habit. A habit becomes a body of work. What once felt insignificant slowly evolves into something meaningful and lasting. Most people never reach this point because they remain trapped in preparation mode. They wait for confidence, validation, or flawless execution. What they don't realize is that confidence comes from doing, not waiting. The process is straightforward. Create something, put it out into the world, learn from the response, and do it again. No permission required. No perfect timing needed. The conditions will never be ideal, and that's fine. Those who succeed aren't always the most skilled or knowledgeable at the start. They're the ones willing to begin before they feel ready. They act, adapt, and keep moving forward. That's where real power comes from. If you want your ideas to reach people, your voice to matter, and your goals to take shape, action has to replace hesitation. Start building. Start sharing. Keep repeating. Let progress pull you forward, because without action, nothing is created. Without creation, nothing changes. And without change, even the best plans fade into irrelevance. Action is what turns intention into impact. Chapter 10. The race doesn't wait. Life has no pause button. While you're getting ready, time keeps moving. While you weigh your choices, the finish line keeps drifting farther away. While you wait for the perfect opening, your aspirations slip past unnoticed. The race has already begun, and standing still only puts you further behind. This truth shows up everywhere. In health, results belong to the person who shows up day after day, not the one endlessly designing the ideal plan. In work, the person who begins before they feel confident gains experience faster than the one stuck polishing ideas. In relationships, those who speak when it matters build connection, while those who delay are left with unanswered questions. Here's the reality: action is the only path to progress. Information without effort goes nowhere. Strategies without execution remain hypothetical. Waiting without risk ensures nothing changes. I learned this under pressure, not in comfort or reflection. Someone needed help immediately. Every ounce of preparation meant nothing until I stepped forward. The moment I acted, the situation shifted. One choice altered everything. That's how progress works. Every opportunity, every ambition, every real change begins with a move. Sometimes it's small. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it fails. But without motion, nothing ever comes alive. That's why hesitation costs so much. Each delay lets the world advance without you. Each pause sacrifices a chance you won't get back. Each idea left untouched fades into another what if. The upside is simple: you can begin right now. The race doesn't judge how long you waited, it only responds to your next move. One decision builds momentum. One action opens the door to another. Wins accumulate, confidence grows, and forward motion becomes easier. You don't need ideal circumstances. You don't need total certainty or a perfect roadmap. You need commitment, the willingness to move despite doubt. I've watched the contrast unfold. When people act, results follow. When they don't, regret settles where progress could have been. The race never eases up. Time doesn't slow down. This moment is already passing. If you want your goals achieved, your dreams shaped, and your plans to matter, you have to move. Begin now. Choose today. Take a step, then take another. Set your pace. Make adjustments. Stay in motion. Action is the catalyst. It always has been, and it always will be. Conclusion: move now. You've arrived at the end. But this isn't a stopping point, it's a starting line. What matters most happens after the reading ends and the doing begins. Everything you've encountered here points to a single truth: change only happens through action. Understanding alone won't redirect your life. Neither will preparation without execution, wishful thinking, or waiting for conditions to feel just right. Forward motion starts the moment you choose to act. I've seen this pattern again and again. Those who step forward uncover opportunities that were invisible before. Their confidence grows from engagement, not delay. They learn as they go by trying, refining, and persisting. Those who hesitate, on the other hand, often accumulate doubt and regret, staying exactly where they are. You don't need perfection. You don't need total clarity, validation, or a master plan. What you need is movement. Small, intentional actions compound faster than you expect. Each one sharpens your perspective. Each one builds momentum. Each one pulls you closer to the person you're aiming to become. Keep this in mind: time moves on regardless of your choices. Opportunities don't pause. Goals don't pursue you. Life is already unfolding. If you want real outcomes instead of unused potential, you must move with it. Start now. Take a single step, then another. Allow momentum to develop. Stay involved, keep progressing, and trust the strength of steady effort. Action has always been the bridge between wanting and achieving, and choosing to cross it is up to you.